Welcome to the Rule of Law, the Academy Speaks. This is the official podcast of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers. I'm Joe Tucker, president of the Academy and your host. This podcast was born in a moment of urgency. Around the world, and yes, right here in the United States, the rule of law is under pressure. But at the Academy, we believe trial lawyers are not just courtroom advocates. We are stewards of democracy. Today, on our initial broadcast, we're joined by two legendary trial lawyers and Academy Fellows who embody this truth. Cliff Edwards of Montana and Kathy Patrick of Texas. You know their reputations. Both have stood tall in high-stakes litigation, taken on powerful interests, and most importantly, never lost the sight of the public good. In this episode, we're talking about what it means when lawyers become the target by presidents, by billionaires, by power itself. Cliff, let me kick this off with you. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on our initial podcast. In addition to being former president of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers, you know I'm a great admirer of yours. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Cliff.
Well, thank you, President Joe, and I want to commend you on your accomplishment of being the very first person who has a skin color like yours to ever be president of this organization. It's long overdue, and I'm very excited about your opening speech at our conclave this morning, and I believe your ideas of what to do in this time are keen and right on. I was born and raised in the Great Judith Basin of central Montana. My grandpa Edwards came there from Scotland in 1890, the year after Montana became a state. We have deep roots that are still there. The ranch that my sons and I own contains a 360-acre piece that Grandpa A.C. Edwards owned about 130 years ago.
So you're what we call a real cowboy.
Yes, I actually am one of those. And it makes it a hell of a lot easier to act like it, too, if you really are. I went to a high school of less than 100 kids, had about 21 people in my high school class, graduated 7th. My mother was not very happy with me.
Top third.
Had a lot of fun, and then I did my undergrad at Carroll College in Helena, Montana, and then the University of Montana for law school. I have been practicing now, it'll be 51 years in June, and it has always been in the courtroom. I didn't go to law school to become a lawyer, to study the nuance of the quitclaim deed. I went to law school to learn how to be a trial lawyer, how to get in the courtroom. Unfortunately, in those days, there wasn't much training to be a trial lawyer in law school. We were much heavier on the nuance of the quitclaim deed. But when I was lucky enough to get to a firm in Billings right after graduation, they had me in police court, justice court, state district court, and appointed by the federal judge to represent indigent Native Americans, because all crime on the many 6 reservations that we have, that's all federal jurisdiction. And I got so much trial experience in those early days. My first wife, Denise, taught grade school in Missoula, and we put our way through law school like that. And then the first year that we were in Billings, the first of our 2 sons was born, Christopher, and 4.5 years later, his brother John. Maybe the proudest I am of any achievement, if I can take any credit for it, is my sons, Chris and John, are my law partners, my only law partners. And I've been doing courtroom battles all over the vast state of Montana for all of these years. And we talk about trial advocacy. You hit it, Joe. We're in a different era now. This country has never seen anything like we're in now with the attack on the rule of law, the very basis of a democracy.
Well, let me turn to that. You've practiced law in Montana for years. You've recovered millions, billions of dollars for the folks of Montana. We're here in Austin, Texas at our annual meeting, and you had a really good conversation yesterday with Senator Jon Tester, former senator from Montana. Can you tell us, or can you start us off by telling what you heard from Senator Tester about the fight and what happens when silence happens?
First of all, I have known Jon Tester very well since 2006 when he first ran for the Senate as an underdog and won by about that much. And we frequently have talked on the phone, meeting up around Montana, and lots of texts and all of that. Jon Tester's sober assessment of where we are yesterday sharpened for me even more the crisis that we're in. Nobody has ever seen an era, the U.S. has been through all kinds of hell from the beginning 250 years ago, but we have never had an organized, open assault on the rule of law and democracy itself. And Senator Tester identified for us yesterday the real culprit is that the Congress, the House and the Senate, have both completely abrogated any of their constitutional responsibilities under Madisonian government.
It was sobering and unsettling, actually, to listen to him talk yesterday.
It was flat-ass frightening.
Yes. And what should trial lawyers be doing in response to what's going on with these attacks?
I share with the entire Academy the belief that as trial lawyers, our obligations, number one, are to our client, and then in conjunction with our obligations to the court. But I think all trial lawyers, I think all lawyers, because we all swear to defend the Constitution
Amen.
of
Amen.
our state and our country. And as officers of the court, we have to rise up, excuse me, and fight and be heard. Bluntly, I was president from 2019 through 2021. We got into the COVID era there, but we rarely had to speak out on matters like this. We spoke out some when in Trump reign 1, he was attacking judges and all of that. We spoke out against that. But Trump reign 2 is a totally different animal. And all lawyers, because of our oath, I believe we have to stand not just on behalf of our clients, we have to stand on behalf of a democracy. When the rule of law dies, democracy dies, and the attackers not only know that, they've been planning for this. Project 2025 spelled it out, and unfortunately, excuse me again, we didn't get anything done. But now, under your leadership here, Joe, I think we are going to have to be on the front line of the battle all of the time.
I hear you loudly and clearly. Kathy, let me turn to you. What can I say about you? I don't even know where to begin. So just so folks get an idea of what a powerhouse you are, Kathy, Forbes magazine has described you as the woman Wall Street fears most. How did you end up being that person, Kathy?
Well, they had to pay me $22 billion, so that might account for it.
Is that billion with a B?
Billion with a B. I would say this. I think that how I ended up being that person
Yes.
is I am my mother's daughter. My mother grew up in Iowa in the Depression. She enlisted in the Army when she was 18 years old because she wanted to get out of Iowa and see the world. She became an X-ray technician, eventually married my dad, who went through officer candidate school. And when my father died, she was widowed as a young woman at 43. She had 2 daughters, a high school education, and she made her own hope. She said, well, I'm going to raise these girls. They're going to do better than I did, and she worked her way up in the county clerk's office to become the head clerk. As lawyers, we all know how hard that is and how important a job that is. She did that all on her own. And then once Sherry and I were out of the house, she put herself through college. And her finest achievement was to get her college degree, which she got, in her 50s sometime. And I think when you have been privileged to know people like that, for whom failure is not an option, when everything is at stake, then you're not afraid of people. And what I came to understand is, yes, there were billionaires on the other side, and yes, they had a lot at stake, but my clients had a lot at stake too. And we all had a problem to solve. And the good news is that we have a legal system that allows currently for the peaceful resolution of those problems. We have due process, we have courts, they stand, they are available. We can discover the evidence and bring the truth to light and tell it compellingly. And you can try a case and there is an answer. That is the genius of the American adversary system. And it is disheartening is an understatement to see that the keystones of that system, judges who are impartial and take an oath to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States, and lawyers who likewise take an oath to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States, are under attack. I'm not much of a Shakespeare scholar, but I have always loved that phrase from Henry the whatever, fifth maybe. The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.
Yes.
It was my 1L t-shirt in law school.
And that's a joke that I think people sometimes don't
get.
Why don't you finish that off for us?
So the reason is because there was a wannabe autocrat, and you had to kill the lawyers because they would get in the way of autocracy and dictatorship. The clip from A Man for All Seasons,
yes,
where Thomas More says, "Would you mow down all the laws for the devil?" And yes, I would, says his young friend. He says, and then when the devil turns round on you, what then would protect you? People will rue the day that we do not stand up for the rule of law, because it protects all of us.
Kathy, let me turn to something you talked about. You've gone toe-to-toe against some of the biggest financial institutions on Wall Street. You've also represented institutions in some of the most consequential cases of our time. You've seen power push back hard. What was your reaction when you saw the administration's latest executive orders targeting lawyers and law firms? And what does that mean for the bar and this country?
I think they are a tragedy. I think they are an outgrowth of someone who has been in the legal system a lot and not had the system work well to compel compliance. And so that person views this as a weapon that he can deploy at his will to get what he wants without regard for what protection the institution provides. I would disagree with you, Cliff, in one sense. I think we have been here before. I think we were here in the McCarthy era, when people were put otherized and made different because they were suspected of being communists. The refusal of some lawyers to fall in line, the punishment of lawyers for having the audacity to represent their clients zealously, as we are obliged to do as lawyers, right? To retaliate against them, to threaten their livelihoods, to threaten their clients. Let's be very practical. To say to a trial lawyer, you cannot enter a federal building. A courthouse is a federal building. We cannot represent our clients if we are targeted in that way. And every law firm and every lawyer should stand up and say emphatically no to this.
Well, let me interrupt you. I want to get personal for a moment. You've both had moments in your career where silence was not an option, but being quiet was the safe option. But you spoke up. For younger lawyers who are listening to this podcast and they're wondering what should they be doing, they're feeling the pressure, give them a message, give them some hope. What should they be doing?
Courage. You have to have courage. I'll tell a story, if I may. When I was a young lawyer, I was privileged to work for John R. Brown, one of the great judges on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, a Republican who thought that racism was a noxious thing that deprived people of equality, wrote the opinion, there can be no relief at the polls for those who cannot vote. And he talked a lot about what he thought lawyers needed to do. And one of the things he shared with me was that he was glad when he became a senior judge because he didn't have to do death cases anymore. And he told me, you should do that when you get out. And so, dutiful elder daughter that I am, when I got to my law firm, I'd been there a couple of days, and I picked up the phone and I called the ACLU in New York, the Legal Defense Fund, and said, I'm a lawyer in Texas. Do you have somebody that needs help? And they sent me the name of a man named Calvin Burdine and said, go see him. He's about to get a death warrant, which I didn't know what that meant. And they had to explain to me how to go down to the jail to see him. So I went in and signed in at the jail, said I was his lawyer, and they took me upstairs and took me in the visitation cell. And he walked in and said, who are you? And I said, the NAACP sent me. He said, are you a lawyer? And I said, yes. And he said, how old are you? I said, I'm 26. And he said, well, I guess you'll do. And there's a very long story. People have probably heard it, of the lawyer who slept through the trial.
Yes.
That's Calvin, and I did his initial habeas. But one of the things I will never forget is standing with him when they read his death warrant, which is an abominable ritual they have in Texas. They bring the inmate down from the TDC, put him in a courtroom, and they read to them chapter and verse how they will be killed. You would never believe the death penalty was appropriate if you had to stand there and listen to the state say to a person to their face, you will be taken to the death house at this time on this day. You will be strapped down to a table. You will be injected with saline, after which there will be and it went on, and I still remember it. And fortunately, through my initial efforts and then through the fantastic efforts of Robert McGlasson, who is a hero to people that do that death penalty work, Calvin's conviction was eventually overturned. And he became a prison minister and ministered to other people. He is a sign that redemption is possible. And I think that issue of having courage to do the next right thing, to just take that step, to try to help the person in front of you. And people won't like that. People will not be happy that you're doing that. But that's what it means, just to have the courage.
I understand. Courage is needed. Cliff, I'm going to turn to you. Trial lawyers, judges, and students are listening. What can they do to help strengthen the rule of law in these troubled times?
I sit on the board of trustees of the National Judicial College, and several years ago during Trump 1, I had made a motion to include in the training of state court judges, because the National Judicial College, no federal judges, it's all state court judges. For instance, in Montana, all new judges have to go to Reno to that. But examining the curricula that we had at the time, I was astounded that we weren't teaching Madisonian democracy as embodied in his 1788 Federalist 51. And the fact that he had stated at that time that if you put the three branches of government that are meant to be a check and a balance one against the other into the same hands of a singular person, a group of people, or some organization of people, then you have, quote, the very definition of tyranny. End of quote. I thought it was important that we get that in the curriculum back in 2018, 2019, which we did, but it has a whole new meaning now, because I agree with you, Kathy, the McCarthy era and the speech that Margaret Chase Smith of Vermont, the senator, courageously made on the floor, that was a senator going wild and ruthless. Now we have a president going wild and ruthless against our entire system, the rule of law, which is the cornerstone of democracy. That's what I think the obligation of we trial lawyers is, not only to the profession, but to the citizens. You know, usually the citizens don't react until their Social Security is taken away, until a head of lettuce costs $52.99, and a goddamn tomato costs $12 more than that. That's when people react, and when they react, then it's too late. It's way too late. So we got to fight now.
Well, let me talk to you about that. What do institutions, organizations like the Academy, what should we do to give courage to lawyers to speak? And I want to, your word, Kathy, courage is so important. What do we do, the bar associations, the other sister organizations to the International Academy of Trial Lawyers?
You said it best, Joe, in your acceptance speech of the presidency here this morning. We need to be the tip of the arrow, the tip of the spear. We need to be leading. We need to be out front. Too often we have proceeded on issues that are controversial like this, and maybe it was right during the times, but it ain't right now in these times. We have to be the leading edge. We have to stand up. We have to fight. We have to go to the public. We have to go to the institutions and preach. By the time we wake up with lettuce and tomatoes and eggs, was going to be fixed day one. I don't buy the eggs in our house, and I don't know
I have
what
chickens, so I don't buy eggs anyway.
I don't know what they cost, but I know they're expensive.
Well, trust us, for us folks who live in the city like me, we know how much they cost.
Yeah, but if that is the driver, when the public rises, they've already lost. We've already lost democracy.
So I would add to that, what's important is this. For individual lawyers, the consequences can be dire, right? It can be very hard to be the lawyer that is singled out, if not by name, by description in an executive order targeting your entire law firm because you happened to work on a particular investigation that he didn't appreciate. What the Academy can do, and what I am proud to see us doing, is to stand up on behalf of all lawyers, to speak and say, for the profession, we decry this behavior. On behalf of the profession, we will stand for the right of lawyers to represent their clients and the right of clients to have counsel of their choice. It is not the government's right to dictate who can represent them. You know where they do that? In Russia, in China. We are not that. We are not that yet. We cannot become that.
Kathy, I'm going to give you the final word on that. My thanks to Kathy Patrick and Cliff Edwards for joining us today and for reminding us that it is not an option to remain silent. It's our duty. If you believe in what you heard today, share this episode, subscribe, and join us next week. For more information about these conversations that'll be happening with the world's leading trial lawyers and who advocate for justice, listen once a week, and we are confident that we will confront the most pressing issues facing our profession and facing the rule of law. I'm Joe Tucker, and thank you for listening to This is the Rule of Law, the Academy Speaks. Remember, agitate, agitate, agitate.
Amen.
Let's keep the fight. Thank you all.